Today on Future Secured, we're joined by Sandro Bucchianeri, Chief Security Officer at National Australia Bank. Sandro has more than 25 years across global financial institutions and advisory roles with the World Economic Forum Centre for Cybersecurity, the PCI Board of Advisors, and so many other places. Sandro has a reputation for bringing pragmatism, calm, and strategic focus to high-stakes environments. And when you're defending one of Australia's biggest banks, you're not just protecting a business, you're protecting national confidence. Thank you so much, Sandro, for joining us on our 50th episode of Future Secured. We're really happy to have you here with us on that celebration. And thank you, Jason, as always, for joining me as my co-host. So let's dive in. Over to you, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sandro, for coming. Yeah, well, 50, I was expecting big balloons in the background or something like that, but I know you've sucked up most of the NAB cyber budget, so, you know, that was never going to happen. So,
exactly.
But we really do appreciate you coming on. There's so many different things we want to sort of cover, but before we do, like for those who don't know you, can you sort of give us the sort of journey as far back as you want to go on sort of how you ended up where you are now with NAB and how that journey sort of followed and how you sort of got to where you are now?
No, that's a great question. I'm really going to need to rack my brain. No, so I was interested in security from a very young age. I've shared the story before. I used to live with my grandparents, and on the weekends, my uncle used to bring me home to where my parents were living. It was in a poverty-stricken area, and we were crossing the field. There were gangsters standing on the right-hand side. They called him over. He left me on the one side. I was 5 at the time. And then they robbed him of his watch and his wallet. And that I still remember it like it was yesterday. But that left me with this impression that, I would love to have protected him in that situation, to protect people from bad things happening. And that kick-started my love for security and wanting to protect, so that innate ability to protect. I always had a love for technology. I'm going to give away my age, but I had an Atari 2600 and a Commodore 64 that my grandfather gave me, that he got from somebody. And that started my love for computers and technology at a very early age. And that then just grew into where it finds itself now. Where I find myself now is having traveled to about 100 countries, lived on 5 continents, all through the journey of being in security. It's taken me all over the world, so we've been very blessed to live everywhere. That's brought me to Australia. So from South Africa to the US, to the UK, to the UAE, back to South Africa, and now to the wonderful continent of Australia. That's how my journey's taken me throughout these 28 years now. And so far, I've been in Australia for about 4.5 years at the biggest business bank in Australia. And I have the absolute privilege of leading a wonderful team over here, protecting the bank both from a security, information, cyber security perspective, but also physical security. That's why I'm the Chief Security Officer. So that's been my journey over the last couple of years. And yeah, hopefully long may it continue.
No, well done. So you would have come here. What COVID would have been in the grips of COVID?
2nd of July. 2nd of July, 2021 is when I landed on the beautiful shores of Brisbane. It was the only flight we could get into Australia. It was the only flight myself and my family could get into Australia was Brisbane. Quarantined there for 2 weeks, and then came to the most locked down city on the planet, which was Melbourne. But
great timing, mate. Great timing. But did you come from Joburg? Were you?
Cape Town. I'm originally Cape Town based.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
But it was great. Nonetheless, look, that was a terrible time for the world, but lots of lessons to learn through that period. And there's no such thing as failure, or it's always time to learn. And we learned a lot through that time on how to be resilient, even more resilient than we were. So we take those lessons learned and apply to the future.
Yeah, and one of the good things I think is the 4 big banks have got some very sizable banks, in comparison when you compare them across the globe. And you guys work, fairly closely together, with Nicola and Maria and yourself. I remember being on, and being on a pod. It was a webinar recently with Michelle McGuinness, and it was interesting some of the stuff that came out there about how you're having your own sort of chat group and different things and how you sort of support each other. Yeah, that's. I know that's not unique to Australia, but I think for the people listening, it's actually really good to hear how closely aligned and linked you are. Because, obviously having similar challenges. How does that sort of work, and how do you find that as being one of the members of that group, and how you sort of assist each other?
No, look, I think it's a great thing that we have with just not just in Australia, but globally in the security community at large. We're all facing similar challenges. Yes, we may be competitors, but when it comes to security, there's no such thing as, oh no, I'm going to go solo. So that's why we operated this team mentality. And it's been great because if Nicola finds something in her world, or Richard or Maria, they'll give me a call, or they'll shoot me a text message saying, hey, we've seen these IOCs, as these indicators of compromise. You guys might want to check your environment to see if anything's going on, and so on and so forth. And then broader and the international markets, we have great relationships with CIBC in Canada, Itaú in Brazil, and NatWest in the UK. We've got what's called the Strategic Banking Alliance. That's been really good in helping us understand the threats from further afield. And that community is really, really strong. So if you ever have a challenge, you could be guaranteed to phone any one of them or message any one of them, and they'll answer night or day. So that's the wonderful thing about this community that we've built over the last few decades. We're always willing to help each other. We're not looking to pull one up on the other. It's just how we can help the greater good. Because at the end of the day, it's the nation that's important. It's every single customer of every single organization out there. That's the ones we are trying to defend. So I think it works really well.
And have you seen, in that time you've been here, you would have seen, I've noticed, I'm hoping it'll be the same for yourself, a greater interaction, especially between the NOCs or, Home Affairs, and having Michelle McGuinness in the role, and just that connection for our critical infrastructure in the country. It seems like there is a real finger on the pulse now with regard to that. From a government, there seems to be a lot more focus and a lot more action happening in there. How have you seen that, and what major changes have you seen that obviously benefit you, but that we could learn from, for the rest of the community, and how they could apply some of the knowledge?
No, look, I think it's been great. I mean, over the years, there's been some terrible things that's happened, right? The thing that accelerated was obviously the major breaches that happened a few years ago with the telco provider.
Optus and Medibank,
and you call that out. Thanks.
Yep. No, I'll
exactly.
Call that all out. That's fine. Yeah.
So with those, it's accelerated the interest in this topic specifically, and the absolute focus that we've needed for so long. And that's why it's been great. The interaction between government and industry and academia has been phenomenal over the last few years. I think Australia is leading in this space, and other countries are looking at us with envy to say, oh, look how they're doing it. We should do it like that. And I think that's been really, really good. We've had some great relationships with ASD, the Australian Signals Directorate, and the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. And we continue to have those open conversations. And that's really helped us improve the overall security of the nation. But there's still lots more work to do. And I think that's where we're all working together to get to the next step.
Yeah.
So cyber resilience in one of our major banks, it's a highly regulated environment. How do you kind of look at things like risk framing, uplift, and readiness and stuff like that?
So, look, from a security perspective, in my organization, any one of the organizations, when I think about criminals or cyber criminals specifically, they don't respect boundaries. They don't respect legislation. They've got no regulator to answer to. It's very simple for them. They move fast. I'll ask Jason, hey, Jason, I've got a target. Your take of the cut is 20%. Are you interested? Yes or no? He says yes. Great, we go. If
I'll
he says
say 25. No, Sandro, my rate's 25.
There's no room for negotiation. But I'll go to Tom and say, Tom, are you interested? 20%? Yes or no? You'll say yes, and then we go. That's it. That's as simple as it is.
Actually, Tom will say 15 and I'll say 25. We'll balance it out.
Well, then Tom is definitely the guy I'll be going to, because that means I've got a much greater profit margin. But that's as simple as it is, right? When you come to our side, we've got lots, and regulation is exceptionally important. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm digging regulation or anything like that, but it's exceptionally important in our world, and how we have to comply to the standards that we set to protect ourselves from ourselves, and also to the greater risks and threats we face out there. So it's important that we are collaborating. That's why I mentioned industry and governments collaborated greatly over the last few years. Intelligence sharing is of utmost importance. We share freely. There's no competitive advantage for me keeping it to myself. And that's been our greatest defense as a nation. And that's why we continue to do so. And when we collaborate, we multiply that impact across our different industries, different organizations, and we can respond to threats more effectively than we have in the past. Think of the DDoS attacks that we've had over the last couple of months. Funny that we're still talking about DDoS in 2025, but those things that are happening, we can help each other defend much faster than we had in the past, and that's really helped. So I think that's how we take the resilience to the next level, by helping each other to better defend our organizations. Because there's an old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that couldn't be more true of how we are coming together as a nation on the different industries, whether you're a competitor or not, to improve the overall resilience of the organizations you work in and the wider community at large, which is why the SOCI Act is so important on how we come together as a nation.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really good point there, Sandro, with regard to, regulation. Some people can apply a regulation and be good from that sense, or look good from that sense, but that doesn't mean you're secure. So having that balance between making sure that you are compliant and complicit with a regulation is different to being secure, right? And that you want to do that, yes. And also you want to make sure that you put other security measures in place, because just doing that often is not enough. But people think, well, if I do ISO 27001 on this framework, or Essential 8, whatever the case may be, that I'm looking after security, but that's not always the case. Again, any clues on how to fill gaps or how to best look at that? Because we do want to be compliant and complicit where we need to be, but also want to be as secure as possible. How do you find that balance from your organisation, and how can we apply that as well?
So the reason I was smiling is because I've got a saying. It's like compliance is a byproduct of good security. And if you do all your security controls, your basics right, you'll automatically get compliance. However, if you just tick the boxes on the compliance front, you may not necessarily be secure. So how we do it, and how I've advocated over the years, it's about security and the basics. Here I am, 2025, still talking about something that should be relatively straightforward. It's the basics. Every breach that has happened over the last 20 years has come down to one potential issue, which is the basics wasn't performed. You didn't patch your system. Your privileged access wasn't where it needed to be. You opened up development access to production environment like you shouldn't have done. So all those basic controls that you were supposed to have done, you didn't do, and that's why most organizations fall foul to that. So we put a lot of focus and attention on those basics. And when you think of security, we've spoken about this multiple times in the past. We talk about brakes on a car or brakes on a Formula One car. I made this example last week. Oscar Piastri can zoom down the straight in Melbourne because he knows that he can stop if he needs to at a stop on a dime because of the brakes on his Formula One car. Now, he's not doing so well like he was supposed to, like he started this season, but hopefully that will change shortly in Vegas. But I think that's where people misunderstand security. It's all about making sure the basics are done right and well, and then you can go much faster with all the other cool stuff that's coming, whether that's quantum, AI, and the like.
It was actually really interesting today in the mail. I got an envelope with a lovely brochure for a holiday and 2 scratchies, stamps from the Philippines. One of those scratchies won $288,000. I was just kind of struck. A tactile scam was
Congratulations,
something I hadn't
Tom.
seen in quite a while. I don't know why I'm here, but in a world of kind of digital scams and stuff. But the conversation we had in our house is that my wife and my son, they were asking questions about this right in the very beginning before we'd even opened the thing. So that culture played a huge role. But you spend a lot of time building security teams in NAB and other places. How much, how do you kind of focus on that cultural aspect in order to kind of help people move at speed? Because they can kind of be, friction points against each other. Yet you need that speed and agility to be able to defend against all these kind of scams coming in today.
Yeah, no, look, I think it's a great question. I think the challenge that you have, if something is too good to be true, it's definitely too good to be true. When it comes to culture, we've heard the old cliches of culture eats strategy for breakfast and blah, blah, blah. Those things, it's more than just box ticking. So we don't try and tick the compliance box. Have you done your annual security training? Yes, tick. Okay, move on. But did you actually learn something through that process? Trying to make something and training specifically around culture much more tangible for something. If you walk across the street, you look left and right, right? None of us think about breathing, but you're breathing right now. So when you have to stop and think about breathing, it's like, oh, the mechanics of that, your lungs and everything going up and down on your chest. You don't think about those things, but the moment you think about it, it's like, oh, actually, that's happening. So that's where security needs to get to, especially when you're going online. It's great that you're getting the tactile scams now. They're getting old school for a reason, because the new school's not working. But how we do it, we try to incorporate cyber education training into everything we do. You asked me earlier before we started recording, what is this PIN? So this is just Cybersecurity Month for 2025. I get a lot of questions about it. And what's that? It's like, that's exactly why I have it. I'll stand in the lift and I'll ask a question about it. And then it's an opportunity to talk about security. We have over 800 security champions globally at the bank. So other people in other parts of the business, not necessarily in security, to talk about it and to be our advocates and to be our promoters on security as a whole. We do lots of customer training. We've done over 50,000 customers attend our webinars that we've had. We do Cybersecurity Month. We are I think we're the only bank that rocks up at the cyber conference every year like clockwork for a good reason. People ask, why are you here? It's because it's not about us. It's not about showing NAB is secure. It's about, this is our contribution to the wider community. So it's understanding our wider role we play in the community and taking the conversation all the way from the top, from government through to our board, through to our CEO, all the way down to our concierge services, to my 12-year-old who loves asking me questions about security. Every day he actually asks me the same question. So, Dad, any secret squirrel meetings today? And when I do say yes, like I did last week, I had meetings last week with ASD, he says, great, what can you tell me what you talked about? And I said, no, I can't, unfortunately not. You're not security cleared. And then he goes on and I said, nope, I can't tell you. And then that's great. And those conversations around security as to why it's important helps change the culture that it's a bunch of security people sitting in a dark room somewhere hacking away. But security is so much more than just that. So, and making sure you can have a highly engaged workforce enables all of my workforce here at the bank to help our customers be more secure. And there's been some great stories over the years on how some of our branch staff has stopped fraudulent activity happening at the branch where somebody may be under duress. So I think that's how we move things forward from a culture perspective. In terms of talent, I love helping young people understand and opening their avenues to learn. So bringing security as far down the food chain in the schooling system is exceptionally important, starting at extramural activities. Like imagine if you were in grade 10, 11, or 12, you get an extramural activity, just like you have with music or cricket or footy. And you are now learning about cyber, introduction to cyber in year 10. In year 11, you learn about more advanced cyber skills, like learning about Python. And in year 12, you then specialize and you do a pen testing certification or architecture or something, so that when you're done with school, other than going to uni, just like we would do with tradie school, you're now ready to hit the workforce, ready, willing, and able. Now you've got 10,000 students that are ready to hit the workforce without having to do anything. That significantly bolsters the cyber reservists that we ultimately would need for the future. And that's how you build your pipeline of talent. And again, security is not just about the technical components. It's very, very broad. And you can come from any industry and bring that skills and learn. So it's this continuing to have this conversation and this debate and making sure that there are options and opportunities for kids, change of work individuals, etc., to learn about cyber and help move the dial forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because obviously the new legislation's coming in, obviously, Sandro, with regard to the Australian government, with access to certain sites. And And you raised some great points there, because this is something that I've been quoted in, not just media, but with government, going back to the schooling system and saying we need to learn these skills a lot earlier. So they're great skills at the back end, but also we're throwing devices at children's in their hands before they can even speak often. And you talked about the basics of cyber. We don't even teach Tom and I have banged on about the slip, slop, slap of cyber, and making it like a car, having it that we've got, the password as what do we say, Tom? The password, I'll go there. The seatbelt is the multi-factor. Password is the
airbag.
Airbags, or the other way around, and then updates when available, like servicing the vehicle or something. But having the kids have the knowledge a bit earlier is that we tend to be giving these devices, parents in particular, to children because they haven't been trained and they don't understand, and they get anywhere on the internet. And we need to sort of bring that forward. And then exactly that too is the career pathway. Then at year 10 is saying, what are your career opportunities here? With the skill sets that it sounds like your son's developing at 12 years of age, they might start to say, oh yeah, you could work in IT generally. You could maybe you could be a lawyer or you could be an accountant. It's the same sort of jobs. They're not preparing them for the roles of what we're requiring. And if we could sort of change that and bring that into the schooling system, it would make a big difference, wouldn't it? Like occupational health and safety is second nature. We need that with cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, and I think it's always difficult to try and change the curriculum. And that's what I learned before. So that's why doing the extramural activity is much easier for me to get set up than trying to actually change the curriculum. And we've tried to do this in South Africa specifically. I managed to set up a cyber academy. It originally started internally, but we managed to grow it. We partnered at the time with a free university called the Maharishi Institute, and took empower marginalised youth through a program of education and upliftment. And that program is still running today. They've trained over 100 kids. All of them have gotten one of the top scores in industry certifications, AWS, Microsoft, Google, Cisco, etc. And they've all got cyber roles, whether that's at APSA in my previous company or in the multitude of organizations out there. And then we build further, because I firmly believe in helping marginalized youth. I firmly believe in helping our gender diversity challenges that we have. And then also whether it's neurodiverse or disabled. So when you look at blind kids, I've got a very good friend. His name is Hein Wagner, and he runs an academy called the Hein Wagner Academy for the Blind out in South Africa. And we had a chat a couple of years ago, and he said, it would be great if you could take your cyber academy concept and apply it to my kids at the blind school. And we did exactly that. And 15 of those kids graduated last year. Every single one of them got placed. Nobody sees their blindness. They now see a skilled individual who can help them foster new avenues for cybersecurity, etc. So I think there's lots of opportunity out there. It's just a willingness to go out and do it.
Yeah. And look, if we're honest, parents give an iPad to a baby as a replacement for a dummy. So it's happening right then. And so taking social media off kids is one thing, but they've still got devices. And if these core basic things, I think, when I met Jason at AusCyber, it's one of the first conversations he had with me about this just need. And I've seen him get frustrated. It's fantastic to see all the great work that's being done. But what do we need to kind of shift this at a government and educational level? I know you're talking about becoming a extra part of the curriculum. Is it it's challenging, and so it's like an add-on. But I mean, it's happened in our house. It hasn't happened at school with both of my boys.
Look, everything that I've seen so far, there used to be a great academy back in the day that did this in Australia, and I pre-recorded a message for one of those academies, and they were going around to different schools and showing about security. And my son actually came home, this was like 3-4 years ago. He says, "Dad, I saw you at school today." I said, "Really?" I said, "Why?" I said, "Oh, no, you were on a video talking about why cybersecurity is important as a kid when I'm playing Roblox." And I remember that video. And I said, "Oh, that's great." And that brought a smile to my face, because they were showing those kind of things and that educational uplift. But again, it's not built into the curriculum. What I would say is, let's start first with the extracurricular activity. Let's get that done first. And then we'll build eventually getting to the curriculum, because other countries around the world are starting to bring AI as mandatory learning in the classroom. Likewise with security or cybersecurity, we should be moving at much greater pace when it comes to those new industries. Otherwise, we will be left behind as a nation.
And how have you, just out of interest, what can you share about tackling shadow AI at a large bank? I just recently have done some work for a not-for-profit, and one of the first things they wanted was some processes, a training program. They sat there for a while, and then I just watched everyone use their own personal free AIs in the background as I wandered around the office. So they had the idea that they needed to do this, but then they were just unable to kind of, even with the processes and plans and training, there was just not the will to do it. So how do you meet that challenge at a bank?
Yeah, so look, the fortunate thing is, I'll say this, AI is great, it's exciting, it's also scary. It's a double-edged sword. So we are very fortunate in that we've been here before, something called the cloud, right? 10, 15 years ago, cloud came out and it just exploded. Everybody would whip out a credit card, set up their own tenant, and then just start doing things, because it was quicker to do that and get your kit up and running than ordering your hardware from a Dell or an HP, etc., waiting for the kit to be delivered and then setting up, etc. And what we learned through that experience to what we're applying to AI now is that if we don't give them a safe and secure environment to operate in, they're going to go and do it on their own. So have that pragmatic conversation up front. And that's exactly what we've done. So when this Gen AI thing exploded, we did exactly that. We put guardrails in place right in the beginning, that these are the safe ways to use AI in the organization, and then take it from there. We've got we have an AI governance forum, which security and privacy is an integral part of, and everybody goes down that journey. And the most important thing out of everything is basic hygiene is of the utmost importance. So you can do what you want, provided you've patched your systems, you've backed up, you've got your privilege access sorted, your access control is working, all the normal things. And if that's done, then we can safely use AI for the ones that we can control, and we block the rest. So that's essentially how we've approached this, so that we can make sure that we are still giving our developers, our rest of our colleagues, a competitive advantage and a competitive edge, but by doing so safely and securely.
I'm interested too in your views on, the impact on AI, both on cybersecurity products and also, on the bad actors using it. I think 2024, when we were at RSA, it was, agents. 2025 was agentic. And both of those conversations almost seemed ahead of the reality. As Jason would say, a lot of wrappers around just LLMs and stuff like that. So how do you see that impacting, and then, potentially also moving on and thinking about quantum coming down the barrel as well?
So as I mentioned before, look, from a basics perspective, if you add the basics right, you'll defend against most of these things. So quantum's coming down the pipeline. Make sure you got quantum-resistant ciphers in place. That's the only defense any of us have right now. AI, the same thing. If your basics is applied correctly, you're in a much better position than most people. So those are the two key things. In terms of how we use it and how we are using it to defend ourselves is exactly the same way the bad actors would. We've had a challenge. I've set up a challenge and an immersion day for my team to say, bring out all the cool stuff that you've been building on side of desk, at home, on weekends, on public holidays, and come and showcase it. And some of the stuff that's been coming through is absolutely phenomenal on how we can actually defend the organization. The challenge you have now is bringing that same energy, innovation, etc., to the organization and using our current platforms around AI, etc., and applying that to what the teams have built. And so far, we have some good success that we have, and hopefully in the future we can share some more about that. But that's how you have to do it. You have to make sure you're building a very good sandpit, really good security guardrails that everybody can play within. And that's what I was saying, that you can have any color of security you would like, so long as it's blue. You can have shades of blue, light blue, dark blue, whatever, so long as it's blue. And that way, I've got the guardrails. Everybody knows that they can play around in that. The moment they need to go outside of that, that's when they can have a conversation with the security team and say, actually, I'm trying to do A, B, and C. The controls, the policies are not fit for what I'm trying to do. Can we look at a better way of doing it? That helps me and my team also to uplift ourselves to say, actually, there is a better way to do it. We may need to adjust the policy accordingly. But that's a much different conversation than before, where somebody was just paying for a new tenant in AWS on their credit card. So that's the conversation we are trying to have.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, isn't it? And trying to be innovative within the bank is often a challenge as well, isn't it? Is allowing within such a secure environment with so many people using it, customers and internally, tens of thousands of people from an internal point of view, and then hundreds of thousands external of that, or millions of customers in the case. With you guys, how do you keep that balance to have the innovation and the look forward? And how do you apply that, and how do you access tools or look at tools and say that they should come into the system? What do you know on your roadmap going forward that you're sort of looking for, and how are you filling those gaps at the moment? Because as you say, Sandro, things are changing so quickly. It's sort of I can imagine it being quite challenging. But from sitting in your seat, how are you assessing that at the moment?
So look, the good thing is we are all technologists at heart, and I think that helps. And we have very ambitious leadership, which is fantastic, because I'm a very ambitious individual, and I want to move things forward as fast as possible and give the teams the freedom to operate within those boundaries of control without losing it. So like I said, if they find something that's out there that we haven't even considered, we invite them to come and talk to us, and they do that all the time, so that we can raise our overall security posture, but also allow them to go as fast as possible. And they know that security is not a blocker. It's actually an enabler to the business. And because of that, they can move as fast as they can. In terms of the wider ecosystem, developers will be having different conversations to what the architects would be having, and so on and so forth. And we come together to have those conversations so we can work together to move things forward faster. And having those brown bag lunch and learn sessions, whatever you want to call it, that's how we also improve our collective knowledge. And I think the last thing is we spend a lot of money on training in terms of providing access to whether it's Udemy or Pluralsight or whatever the case may be, where people go and can learn. And we are massive advocate of always be learning. It's exceptionally important. So that's what we help the teams to understand, so that they can better educate themselves.
And what do you see as this next phase, just in a more general sense, and probably not so bank specific? From a security point of view, Tom sort of mentioned previously about how on the attacking side they're using AI, quite collaboratively. But besides that, what else do you see? And you did touch on sort of quantum, but how do you see this next period up to, say, 2030 or the next sort of 4 or 5 years? What are you sort of seeing as the main transitions or things we should be looking out for or trying to adjust for realistically?
I think some of the things that's already started happening is, have you ever found a bad phishing email in your inbox recently? Probably not, because it's all AI enhanced, all generated. It looks perfect. It's very difficult to detect. So that's going to continue. Deep fake social engineering is definitely coming to the fore. Using AI to doctor official documents. If there's no verified ID check on the back end of that, if you just do it on face value, you can't really tell the difference. So that's going to come through. And we've seen that with the North Korean IT worker challenge globally. That synthetic identity generation, that's been an issue. And then influence and disinfluence campaigns are going to come to the fore as elections come up, and so on and so forth. So those are the main key challenges that we see. We're going to see attacks that are going to be just go at the other end of the scale from a exponential growth and attack perspective. But with all those negative things, I think we were at a great crossroads for the blue teams and the defenders or the white hats to equally move as fast and defend us against those kind of attacks. And I always use this analogy. It's two supercomputers playing chess against each other.
Yeah.
Think two Magnus Carlsens playing chess against each other. They'll probably cancel each other out, because I think that's where we will get to. And we just need to continue to stay ahead of the curve. Always be learning, exceptionally important. Stick to the basics, and communicate with each other. It's probably the three most fundamental tips that I could give anybody. Keep those open lines of communication, because we sometimes as people, we forget communication is actually vitally important. Because you'll have two people working on the same problem sitting next to each other, and they never talk to each other until 4, 5, 6 hours later in the incident, and then they'll just glance at each other's screens or say something, and it's like, oh, I fixed that problem 5 hours ago. Why didn't you say anything? That type of thing. So that's over the years that has happened. So that's, I think, where some of the challenges can be staved off if we just start communicating better than we have in the past.
And what do you do outside of cyber? Like I know that you get quoted in books, and David will love me for popping the favourite book. There's a bit of a plug there, and we do have Sandro's lovely face on here, and actually inside the book as well. But what are you doing from a, I know when we spoke to Dan Maslin, he's big into F-45, and so he's really he's adjusted his life. I know you're a professional powerlifter and stuff like that, that a lot of people wouldn't realise, Sandro. But what are you doing, like, from a reading point of view, or a relaxation point of view, or a hobby point of view, that you can sometimes bring some of those things outside? Because sometimes we do get stuck in our little cyber bubble or cyber world, but often we learn a lot more from outside of it. And you've quoted some really good quotes during this talk, and I think. And Tom, his favourite one got pulled up there as well. That he'll be loving that you did
for breakfast.
Yeah, that's his catchcry, right? But what is it that you're doing outside that you find really helps you internally? Because you're dealing with a lot of people. You've got a large direct team, and then you've got to deal with boards, and you've got to deal with you got family stuff. You've got so many different hats you have to wear. How do you, as a person, sort of manage your life? Because that's of interest to us and obviously our audience as well. How are you? Because, looking at a role that you have at such a large institution, there's a lot of pressure there, but also you've got to be a dad, you've got to be a husband, you've got to be all the different things and hats. So what do you do to actually keep on top of all that?
So a couple of things, right? So I'm religious. I go to church. I have a strong faith-based moral center, and that helps, and that drives everything in my life. Family is always first, and then work. Because work will replace me tomorrow, but my family can't. So I have a strong family belief.
Yeah, my family's tried a few times, haven't been able to. So that's true.
I drop my son off every day at school. That's the time that I can carve out of my day to drop him at school, catch up with him. It's a 10-minute journey to school, but it's probably the best time that you can get to spend with trying to get quality conversations. You'll get the comments around.
They can't get out.
Yeah, locked in the car, driving 40, 50 kilometers an hour. He can't jump out. So I think, and those are the great conversations. So I try to keep that time safe. I try to block my time away between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. So that's family time. I have dinner, try to have dinner on the dinner table, and I have catch up about the day, and then I can always get back online late at night. So those are the things I keep sacred. I love giving back. So there's lots of mentorship stuff that I do. Just to help young kids or whatever the case may be. I do a lot of work still in South Africa with non-profit organizations, just to give back as much as I can and do some guidance, etc. And then I try very badly, very poorly to try and exercise. I need to continue to keep that. That's the only way I can get through all of this. And people ask me, the favorite question I keep getting is, how do you sleep at night doing what I do? And I love what I do. To me, this is not a job. This is, I don't want to say a calling, but I absolutely love what I do. I don't see it as work, and which is why it's very difficult to try and separate work and home life. So you have to find a balance. There's no such thing as a work-life balance, but you need to find balance regardless. So I'll exercise, and I love playing badminton. So those are the couple of things that I do, and spend a lot of time with the family. But for the most part, I don't take life too seriously. I've had tragedy very early on in my life, which just taught me resilience that I use in my day-to-day. I lost my first wife when I was 25. She had cancer. And I had one of two ways I could have gone. I could have gone, oh, woe is me. Why has this happened to me? Or I could lean into my faith and lean into I've got 2 young kids to support. Just buck up and suck it up and move forward. And that's what I've done. And that's helped me be the type of person I am today. So when people say, oh, you don't get stressed, you don't, why are you so calm in a difficult situation? It's because nothing's going to compare to that. So with those things, that's how I've managed to be successful in what I do right now. And
Thank you for sharing that, because that's good. And the book, that's what I was going to say with David.
For the book, that's David nagging me for a long time to write
he nags a lot of
chapter.
people. He's a good nagger.
He is. He's very good at that. But no, it was great to just collectively dump my knowledge and then try and craft it into hopefully something that one person on the planet will find useful.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable, because it's important to know, because I think people do sometimes look at the top and think people are superhuman and all those sorts of things. And we all feel and feel the same thing. And it's good that you're sharing, that your faith has been something you've been able to lean back on as well. And I think something you said earlier about, and I think that's why cyber has I caught that bug too, is almost like emergency services or medical people, you want to really be there for the greater good and help people and protect them from the cancer, that you sort of mentioned before, which is in some ways cybersecurity, a cancer online in a way, and the way it attacks people and takes people in many ways, not just in a financial sense. There are people that have been in cyber attacks and actually taken their own lives and things of that nature as well. So there's a lot of things that happen, aren't there, Sandro, behind the scenes, that a lot of people don't realise the impacts of what happens with these online crimes, and the fact that you're leading the way. I think I'm a NAB customer in part as well. So, that thankful when you meet the leaders who look after you, and you feel a lot safer from actually meeting someone who's actually trying to protect your interests, whether it be online or other ways. So, I really thank you for sharing that, because that's a hard thing to sort of talk about, but it's also something that I think people need to realize, is that, we are all human beings behind the computers and in these roles, and that needs to be understood. So the fact that you carve out time for your kids and you've sort of spoken about them so glowingly is something we appreciate on here as well. So, besides the cyber stuff, thank you for sharing that as well.
You're welcome. Look, the last thing that I'll add is none of this is possible without a strong partner. So I did remarry, and I've been married for almost 20 years now. My wife, I said this before, my current wife, my wife, she's been a phenomenal rock and a source of strength and pillar of guidance, because your wife and your better half is always the person that tells you, don't be dumb, don't do this, don't do that, etc. And then you don't listen initially, you stub your toe and you realize, I should have listened. So she's been phenomenal in helping me be successful and try to stay grounded. And I think there's none of what I am is possible without her. So I'll just send that kudos to her.
Excellent, man. Thank you for that. Tommy, have you got another question? I sort of took us down a different path, but
look, I do love that space, but I'd love to kind of steer back. You mentioned North Korean IT workers, but I think it's a really interesting challenge now. We've got these globally diverse, dispersed workforces. And I remember speaking to another cybersecurity leader a few months ago, and she was telling me how she's trying to go and encourage everyone, all the managers and leaders, to actually get in the room with their staff around this idea of insider threats. So, how do you kind of handle that in some ways? Is it a simple solution in NAB? Or is it, I'm just curious because, lo and behold, you discover this person is a North Korean IT worker snuck into the system.
I would change it. It's not just NAB, it's global. Microsoft, with their 300,000 people, had this problem. Everybody's going to have this problem. So it's not just NAB, it's everywhere. You hit the nail on the head. It's about knowing your people, right? How many times, because you have to rely on your leaders to know who's working for them. And if you're a leader who doesn't know the people working for you, there's a bigger problem that you need to go and solve for. Return to the office, which is a very visceral topic. I mean, nobody wants, every time you bring this up, it's like, no, I need to work 3 days from home. I need hybrid. Coming back to the office is actually exceptionally important to understand who's working with you, who you're working with. Not just for that, just for collaboration in general. But we're fortunate at the organization, at the bank, we have a hybrid work policy. The difference is we make sure that video is always on. It's important. And then when it comes to the insider risk, making sure your probity, how many times have you as a CSO or CISO thought about probity? Oh, no, that's a people and culture issue. You shouldn't worry about that. But from an insider perspective, is that have you checked the passport details that were sent through? Have you only visually checked it? Or actually have you confirmed it and verified that the picture on there matches the picture you're seeing, that the name, etc. So all those little components, that 100-point check is actually exceptionally important. And then how do you go down to your third, fourth, fifth, sixth parties that must do the same thing? Because what you'll find is people, I'm looking for somebody, I'll go to a third party who doesn't have the person, but they'll say, yeah, we'll get it for you. And then they go to their third party who goes to a fourth party, etc. And then eventually you hire somebody which you thought is the person. It was Jason, but it's actually Tom. And that's where the AI attacks is.
You don't want that mistake, Sandro. You don't want that one.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So I think that's it. Just completely depends. And this is just like we work together much better now at an industry level with government, etc. Your own internal divisions need to work closer together. Whether it's your people and culture business, your security business, your tech business, business itself, all needs to work closer together so that you can stop this incoming threat that we are now faced with.
Yeah, and there was an extra step to that. We had a Canadian police officer who's based in Australia, who's a cybersecurity expert in cybersecurity, chasing down cases, and he was actually talking about a case study in Canada. And he said one of the things is that you're not actually often sitting in the room and asking them, why have you got this job? What is your motivation for being here? And that answer can often be an incredibly telling way of uncovering someone that, maybe isn't there for the right reasons as well. So do you kind of see that happening as well as the kind of identification piece?
Physical security is exceptionally important, right? So how often when have you ever, anybody challenged you to ask you, hey, I haven't seen you before. No, where's your badge? It said, because in our policies, if you're wearing your lanyard and your badge, that's in our policy. So if you don't have one, it's like I get asked the question. Sorry, it doesn't matter who I am. I get asked the question. Oh, sorry, can I see your badge, etc. Then I'll show it to them. Those little sense checkpoints is very, very important to help the broader security ecosystem. Now, it depends on where you are in the world, because some cultures doesn't like the challenge, etc. It feels like you're offending them. But again, you just have to weave your policy around those distinct differences on culture. But yeah, it's important to check faces, names, etc., badges. It's part of your defense, your overall strength in depth strategy.
Yeah, I think that has been a weakness in the past. I think Australia too, being very, very trusting and very friendly, will shoulder surfing or people just opening a door for someone who's maybe carrying a ladder, looks like they're going to be doing some work, and just letting them come straight through the office, and into the cupboards and doing all the different things. So yeah, it is something that, when we look at security and when people get pen testing done, sometimes they're bulletproof online, but it's as easy as just sliding through the front door into the office. Yeah, to
socially engineer their way in.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, no, I think look, I loved what you've covered. I know we're sort of coming up to time here, but we've really appreciated, and thank you for coming on as number 50, the 50th guest. I'm super surprised that Tom didn't organise those balloons in the background or anything for you, Sandra.
Sorry.
I knew it wasn't.
This is a great background.
Yeah,
it's a great background. I'm sure he can do lots with that great background.
We'll have to superimpose something in there as well. Tom's an expert on Riverside FM now, so I'm sure he'll be able to make something done. But mate, really appreciate it, and as I said, really appreciate how open you've been, the work that you've done in industry, and keep up the fantastic work you're doing here and overseas as well, because it is appreciated. And we just wanted to thank you wholeheartedly for everything you're doing, and keep up the great work. And hopefully you do get a little break over Christmas, and there are no silly little cyber criminals trying to bust into the system while we've got less of a team running through Australia. This seems to be the time we get targeted, or there seems to be some sort of little hiccup that happens, just before Christmas. So hopefully we
Log4j is a
Log4j is exactly what I was thinking in the back of my head when I was saying that. And let's just hope we don't get those gifts for this Christmas.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a quick story on Log4j. When that came out, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. Yep. And I was the one that had to decide whether everybody gets a Christmas break or not. Fortunately, we managed to get everything sorted before the Christmas break, so I didn't have to turn into the Grinch. That's Christmas, Easter, all the big holidays.
Holiday periods.
It's always
we do get targeted. So keep on your toes, gang, out there, mate. All the best for the festive season. Wish you a Merry Christmas and all the best for 2026.
Likewise, thank you for everything.
I'm sure we'll cross paths. It was good. No, appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all those stories. And look, listeners, you can find Sandro on LinkedIn. every time you're out using your NAB account, you can be confident that he's got everything working in the background, all the security sorted out. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jason, as always.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, guys.